Okay, welcome back to another episode of Vendetta Sports Media. We got two in the same day. I think one's going to go out today, one's going to go out tomorrow, though. This is also another special episode with a special guest right here, my boy Jackson Law, one of my favorite people from Vendetta. What's up, Jackson?
What's up, Alex? Appreciate the kind words, man.
Oh, no problem.
Love you too, brother.
No, brother, much love all the time. We're going to be talking about the Grizzlies. This is Jackson's favorite team. I thought I'd be nice and throw on my Vancouver. This Vancouver Grizzlies, I think it's one of the best designs. You know what, Jackson? Let's start off with this. Why don't they go to this? Why? I mean, like, this is so much better than – okay, the Grizzlies, they're okay now. They're kind of theme and stuff, but this is – you can't beat this. You can't.
No, you honestly – can't. I'm like, when they did the redesign a few years back, I started getting really excited because they were teasing, because in one of the promotions, they had the classic logo where it was the bear coming, like his claw was coming out and he was holding the basketball. And I remember I was in my college dorm. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, they may be throwing it back to the Vancouver days. And then they released the new one and I was like, they're nice, but it was kind of disappointing for what they were setting up. But I'll tell you what is going to be lit, though, is that I originally wanted to get the Vancouver throwbacks as in a John Morant jersey. And next year, their statement jerseys are going to be their throwbacks when they first came to Memphis. So it's like the black with that same green, but it says Memphis on the top of it. I'll have to show you a picture of them.
Yeah, because I've never seen that. So I'm actually really interested in that.
Yeah, that was like back in the Shane Battier, Mike Miller, and rookie Pau Gasol days.
Oh my God!
Like that's some classic, insane throwback. Yeah. But they're gonna have the Jordan logo on it, and it's gonna look sexy as hell. And I cannot wait to cop one of those because all the statement jerseys next year are gonna have the Jordan logo on them.
I love that. I was about to say that. I love the whole Jordan logo. You know, you wrote a post about, the Jordan logo on the Pistons, and Michael Jordan. He finally beat him. Like, he's actually owning them. But I mean, I just love this design. I wish they would go back to it. I think it's just such a. You know what? I shamelessly go to the NBA store and I was looking at all the Vancouver Grizzlies stuff because I'm like, I like this, I like that, I like this. It's such a cool design. I think what. If Grizzlies were smart, they would go back to this.
I think in about 5 years, I give it 5 years, they'll do a redesign, and this will be their norm because they're really selling like the 90s throwback. They had a couple 90s throwback nights. Like the game that my wife and I went to was against the Hornets. They were handing out fanny packs for free. It was like the first cool. 10,000 fans got fanny packs, and then the shirt designs that they all have. So they know that there's a market for Vancouver throwback style jerseys. So I think 5 or 6 years they'll redo it.
It's not hard. All they gotta do is do this and then change this right here just to change it in Memphis. That's all they gotta do.
On my desktop, that's literally what someone did. Someone just went into Photoshop and it's the same logo with the bear and it says Grizzlies. It just says Memphis on top instead of Vancouver.
Holy shit, it's not hard.
It takes 2 seconds in Photoshop and it's gonna be worth millions.
And then, God, let me be a designer for a team because it's just like, watch this, guys. Just do this and then do that. That's all you got to do. And it's like, done. But, man, these Grizzlies, I tell you what, I was not expecting this. And you know what? I kind of alluded to this to you before, but I would never really follow the Grizzlies as much. I knew they had a young team. I knew they had plenty of young talent, a lot of potential. But 8th seed in the Western Conference already was not expecting that. And I got to say, it's got to be a good time to be a Grizzlies fan, no?
It is. And, I wasn't even expecting that. So when I first got to Vendetta, the first article that I ever wrote, it was after the draft. And it was basically, was John Morant the answer for Memphis's troubles? That was the first article that I wrote. And then we started doing the season previews. And of course, me being, I think, the lone Grizzlies fan, I think we had one other guy that may have been that's not with us anymore. Can't remember his name. There's so many people that have just come and gone real quickly without saying anything. It's been ridiculous. But being the lone Grizzly, I was like, I want to do the Grizzlies. This is something I'm comfortable with. And while I'm still getting comfortable with the formatting and, getting to know everyone, I want to do something that I'm comfortable with. I predicted 30 wins. And I felt like after seeing the season previews where they're guessing like 21 wins, I think 23 wins was the official over and under for the Grizzlies, I was like, man, I was like, I had a really good feeling about 30 wins, but I was like, man, maybe I overshot, and I was like really trying to hold back my excitement.
Yeah.
And it initially looked like that to start out the season. We had a couple of tough games, but then we had the great overtime win against Brooklyn, where Ja Morant, third game of the season, blocks Kyrie Irving's game winner attempt and then gets the game winning assist to Jay Crowder as the buzzer goes off. It was incredible. And ever since then, especially after December, things really turned around for this team, and they were playing some of the best basketball in the league. They have I forget what the statistic is, but they were talking about it last night during the game, and it was they had one of the best fourth quarter scoring runs of any team in the NBA for about a month and a half, basically from January to mid-February, and they have a top 5 bench in the league. And that bench, it's names that you really wouldn't think would do that. It's Tyus Jones, Anthony Melton, Brandon Clark, and then depending on who's healthy, sometimes it's Grayson Allen, who hasn't been that healthy that much. Sometimes Kyle Anderson has come off with that second unit. It's just been ridiculous to watch. And I have to keep reminding myself that we're ahead of schedule, but we're still a really young team. Valanciunas is the quote-unquote veteran leader of the team, and I think he's 26 or 27.
He's stupid young. I mean, and you know what?
Yeah.
So, and your prediction's right on the money. And you know what? There's a lot of fans, and then I'm kind of this way sometimes, but when people talk about their teams, they tend to overpredict. But what I notice is a lot of people that at least write for our website, we're pretty down to earth on our predictions about our own teams,
Mm-hmm.
Last year, this is an NBA podcast, but I said my Raiders would go 8-8. They went 7-9. I felt like that was, and you know what? We lost a couple games that we should have won. Grizzlies, you said 30 wins. They're at 32 wins. And, that's, not even the full schedule. That's like maybe about, I think, like 10 or 12 games, cut out of the schedule that they probably maybe half could have won. So, you know what? You kind of set the bar not high, but you set it at a reasonable. I mean, it was reasonable. They're past that. I mean, they're 3 years ahead of schedule. I thought Ja Morant's good. He might not be, like as good as he is now. I knew he was a great player, but I didn't think he was going to be as good where he's leading this Grizzlies team to the playoffs, at least right now. And you know what? I'm rooting for those Grizzlies. So I do think Pelicans and stuff, we'll get to that later, but, we'll get into that. But I do think Ja Morant's a hell of a player, man. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
When people are talking about people are so quick to criticize rookies. You were talking about, they lost the first couple games, kind of slow. Not a lot of rookies are going to go in there and be like, oh, yeah, I am an NBA player playing against the best NBA stars, and I know what to do. So it's a learning process. And you know what? He's a very quick learner, obviously, because he's already balling out. But you did mention one player that I love, and that's Kyle Anderson. That's only because he played for the Spurs. I love.
He did, yeah.
I love slow-mo, man. I wish they would have kept him.
Hey, we love him too, man. You should see Grizzlies Twitter talk about him. And he's starting to shoot the three crazy down in the bubble. It has surprised me. He was like 29% all year, and he's like in the 40s down in the bubble.
It's
so blowing my mind.
When the Grizzlies signed him, I was like, you know what? That's a good signing for the Grizzlies, but we're gonna match it, right? Because it's cheap. What, like $8 million? It's like $8 million a year.
Yeah, it's
yeah. So I was like, we'll
it is a super friendly deal, and it's like a 3 or 4 year deal.
I was like, we'll match that, and I kept waiting, and we signed somebody else. And I was like, we're not gonna match him. We really just not gonna match Kyle Anderson. And you know what? It just proves the Grizzlies made a great signing, and I wish the Spurs would have matched it. But I mean, and he's young. I mean. What you think? I think Valanciunas may be the oldest guy on your team.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Gorgie Zhang and Anthony Tolliver, but Anthony Tolliver, we signed him to the longest 10-day contract in history because we signed him before an Atlanta game, and then in literally 5 days is when Rona hit and the season ended, and he was technically on his 10-day contract for the past 4 months.
Oh my God!
But we signed him to an extension because there's that little grace period, like a week before training camp started down in Orlando. So we signed him to a full deal for the rest of the year, but longest 10-day contract in NBA history. And then Gorgie Zhang, he's just kind of a cap filler because he's a big. He provides length. He provides leadership. He's been in the league for a while, but he's cap filler because there's no real free agents like jumping into next season. Justice Winslow, the trade that kind of had everyone scratching their head because they gave up Jay Crowder, Solomon Hill, and Iggy, mostly for Justice Winslow. We cut Dion. Now he's balling with JR and is with the meme squad with the Lakers.
I was a big fan of the trade. I love the trade for the Grizzlies. Everyone else was bashing him. I thought they won.
When Justice is healthy, we played the Heat first game of the season, so I got to see a healthy Justice Winslow up front. I think his score line, and I could be wrong here, it was like 27, 7, and 8.
Yeah. It
was like 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists.
Yeah.
The guy is insane when he's healthy. And this was what was so disappointing about what's going to be more disappointing in this bubble right now. It won't be that if the Grizzlies miss the playoffs, if they don't get that 8th spot, that won't be the most disappointing thing to me. It'll be not getting to see Justice Winslow because Grizz fans have been waiting over 4 months since the trade deadline to see Justice Winslow and see how he meshes. And then we got to hear all the hype because all the players and all the coaches were talking to him. They looked like they were going to throw him in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Like he's a brand new guy that has not played a single game with the Grizzlies and impressed them so much. And then once he did get hurt, Taylor Jenkins, I watched an interview with him where he said basically Justice getting hurt really threw out of whack the rotations. And so those first 3 scrimmage games, it was just figuring out the rotation. It was getting back in shape and game playing shape and figuring out the rotation because they had their rotation set with Justice. And it's super disappointing. I can't wait to see him next year.
Bro, I was laughing. I was like, everyone was saying, "Oh, the Heat fleeced the Grizzlies." I was like, "How?" Andre Iguodala wasn't playing, right? Jay Crowder.
No.
He's good. He's decent, but he's not no game changer. Okay, Solomon Hill, and I'm like, okay, who the fuck cares, right? Those are 3 guys that aren't going to be in the Grizzlies' future plans, and you trade for Justice Winslow, a guy that's has a ton of potential, is gonna fit in on this young squad already.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, how do you hate that for the Grizzlies?
Yeah.
And the Grizzlies are still 8th seed. So
and the thing is the cap space for the Grizzlies for the year after next. So what would that be? The 2022 free agency. Yeah, 2022 free agency, where that's a stacked class where you have like Giannis, Kawhi, PG, and basically 5 or 6 all-star caliber players, along with players like Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum, who even though they're restricted free agents, maybe you make an offer, you try to do a sign and trade or something like that. But we have enough cap that when that time rolls around, even if Justice doesn't really perform like we would like him to next year, we could probably get him on a friendly small deal because he's got a player option, I think, the year after next year.
Mm-hmm.
So in that 2022 free agency, I think, or not a player option, but a team option. So if we don't like Justice Winslow, if the Justice Winslow experiment fails, we just cut him. No big deal. We try to go out and sign a free agent. If it kind of works, then maybe we could sign him to a lower deal and still get close to a max level player. I've seen a lot of talk about maybe trying to go after Zach LaVine. I'm kind of iffy on that. But
that's a really athletic backcourt, though. Oh my god,
it absolutely would be. Or if Justice Winslow is a guy that's averaging, 27, 8 and 7 a night or whatever, then you just throw him big money and you fill out the rotation, make sure everyone else gets to eat a little bit, and then you just go for it.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a great young squad, man. I would say I think from what I know about the Grizzlies, John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., they got to be your most valuable players right now. You think?
Absolutely. They are. I've been seeing a lot of non-Grizzlies fans talking about how they're the best young duo under 21 in the NBA, and I've been seeing a lot of talk of people saying, and this is from non-Grizzly fans talking about the Grizzlies. Or at least people that I don't recognize as being a part of Grizzlies Twitter, saying that Jaren Jackson is everything that Knicks fans wanted Porzingis to be. And
Oof.
right now, Jaren is 6'11". On the season, he's shooting 39% from three.
That's great.
He also has the most threes. I saw a stat. It was like last night was the 7th game of the season with 5 or more made threes.
Wow.
This
Holy
dude's 6'11".
Yeah.
He just needs to get his fouling under control, and then it's game over.
Yeah. So that already, and with the NBA going more towards the three for bigs, like stretch bigs is the thing now. That's the fad. So I mean, obviously Jaren Jackson. I mean, everyone thought Porzingis, and Porzingis is a hell of a player. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, he's 7'3", he's shooting threes. That's where the league's going now. And so to have that guy like Jaren Jackson that can shoot that three at a good efficient rate of like 39%, which you know what people say it's not over 40, it's like whatever. There's a 50, 40, 90 club, and if you're like near 40 for 3-point percentage, that's fucking awesome. I don't care what anybody says. That's awesome.
Yeah, especially being 6'11", and it's not just like how like Porzingis, sticking with the Porzingis comparison. Porzingis, it's mostly spot up threes or pick and pop threes. With Jaren, he gets 1-on-1 with a man and puts the moves and will do a step back. He's 6'11", and he's doing all of that between the legs, behind the back, all these moves, and he's a quick enough big man, because I remember talking about this way back in the mid part of the season with Trey, because back when we were doing NBA shorts, I talked to him about Jaren. He's quick enough and long enough to where he's going to blow by someone, and that happened with Yusuf Nurkic last night, who I was very scared of coming back, and
oh my God,
I think was the key to the Blazers pulling out that win last night, and CJ dropping like 33 or 35. But he put the moves on Nurkic last night. And it's crazy to me. No one that big, that tall, should be able to dribble as good as he does and shoot as good as he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's fucking – and you know what? People, the Grizzlies did lose, but, man, they looked good. There was times during that game when their experience kind of showed, which it's just that veteran presence. But, I mean, that's something you get later on. Like and we've already said, they're ahead of schedule. So, I mean, but when you're going up against Dame Lillard, CJ – Nurkic, a great defensive center. I mean, that's just experience, and that's just people that have been there fight for these already playoff spots. This team is so young. Like, to get this experience now, game over, man. That they might be pushing for a conference finals, maybe even a finals in the next couple of years if they these players keep developing at this rate. There's a lot of names I recognize, but I don't know enough about. And I'm honest enough to say that. So I'm going to read off the names. And then whichever order you could tell me what how they fit into the Grizzlies squad. Because you know what? With the Grizzlies being a small market team, they're not talked about enough. And I kind of feel that with my Spurs. My Spurs players aren't talked about enough. But,
even though they've had like the best winning – the past 2 decades, I don't think anyone's won more championships than them in the past 20 years.
No. So
and you have the best coach in the NBA, and Greg Popovich, who can take street players. And
I hate to say this, but because I hate the Patriots, but the Spurs remind me a lot of the Patriots. There's, the Patriots, they find no-name guys, make them into stars, not stars, but they make them into really good players, and then they go somewhere else and they're ass cheeks. So I think, and they do their business quietly. The Spurs don't cheat. I love that. So, but it does remind me, and I don't think the Spurs get enough respect. I'm used to it though. I'm happy with 5 championships. I'll take that any day of the week. But I feel like these players need to be known by all NBA fans that watch this, or they need to know if you want to take the NBA seriously, you need to start taking the Grizzlies seriously, and you need to start learning their players. So I'm going to give you. We don't need to talk about Josh Jackson, but. I don't know why. I just don't like Josh Jackson. I don't know what it is about that guy, but I don't like him. So, do you have paper or anything? Because I don't. Well, I'll just read them off, and then if you need the names again, I'll give it to him. Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark. We did talk about Kyle Anderson, Tyus Jones, and D'Anthony Melton. Those are 4 guys that I feel like aren't talked about enough, that need to be talked about enough, that I don't know enough about, but I know Jackson. So what do you got for me?
All right. So let's start with Dylan Brooks. And Oh, where do I start with him? He's definitely the most decisive player in the fan base. You either love him or you hate him. And I fall more on the side of I love him, but man, does he make me pissed and angry sometimes because like down the stretch last night in the game, which even if this comes out Sunday, I'm talking about the first Grizzlies game against the Blazers in the bubble for seeding purposes. Down the stretch, the Grizzlies are up 5-6, 2 minutes left to go. Close game, and I'm sitting there praying, please God, don't let it be Dame time every time Damian Lillard gets the ball, because I don't want my team getting waved at
Yeah.
by Dame after a buzzer beater that ends the series. I don't. The Thunder can have that. I don't want my Grizzlies to have that. But he's taking horrible shots, horrible contested step back jumpers early in the shot clock that don't come through the offense. And that's been his major problem. Now, sometimes he hits those shots. Sometimes he hits that three-pointer with 19 seconds left on the shot clock, and it's big. Sometimes he'll hit two of them in a row, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the type of momentum that we needed to get us back in to the game. And that happened last night. That happened in the third quarter. They scored 36 points in the third quarter. Dillon Brooks was a big part of that. He got a couple threes to go down, and then Ja Morant scored 9 points in a row. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. hits a three. And the next thing you know, instead of being down by 12, we're up by 6, and timeout's called, and we go on a 24-6 run.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of momentum that's the type of energy that Dillon Brooks brings. And he's also a fearless defender. And I love that more than anything. If he can be that defender for us, for that starting unit, then you kind of have to live with some of the bad. And sometimes that bad can cost you, cost you valuable buckets. He doesn't need to be taking those type of shots unless there's like a few seconds left on the shot clock, like I said, or if he gets a mismatch through the movement in the offense, but he's not getting the mismatch. It's the guy that the Blazers have assigned, hey, you're going to guard Dillon Brooks. That's who he's taking the shot on. That's not who you want him taking that type of shot on. You want a big or someone that's undersized or someone that's not as good of a defender, because they're going to be paying more attention to Dillon Brooks when he's on the court. Yeah. So again, love-hate relationship with him, but we got him on a really friendly deal. It's like after this season, it's like 3 years, and it's like 12-13 million a year. Mm-hmm. So it's super friendly, fits well in with the cap. So
what
it
sounds like is so Dillon Brooks is, fearless defender. You said that can get buckets. He can get buckets. It sounds like he lacks, I guess, the basketball IQ to make those smart plays. Like his potential is through the roof if he could just, think about what the hell he's doing for a second.
Yeah, he plays like like what you would think like a classic scoring guard from the 90s or the early 2000s would be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit in today's NBA. And there's too many good defenders in the Western Conference and a lot of teams that we play for him to get away with doing that. And us being a young team, there's no real veteran for us to lean on. Valanciunas is probably the only guy that we can really rely on to consistently get a bucket down low. But again, jury's still out on Dillon Brooks. I honestly would say Grizz fans are 50-50 on him. Even on some other websites that are solely dedicated to covering the Grizzlies, it's like a dead even split.
It's like
on most of them, and it's either you love him and you're gonna die on that hill, or you hate him and you're gonna murder everyone else on that hill.
You know what?
That's
what it sounds like, and like I don't know why this is. I'm getting a lot of analogies from NFL right now, but it sounds like Dillon Brooks for the Grizzlies is Derek Carr for the Raiders. Like that's
absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's just like Derek Carr for the Raiders. You either love the guy or you hate the guy, and you can be objective about it at the same time. But there's people that just love him or like criticize everything he does. I see why, and I never got around to the post, and I kind of hate that I didn't. But you told me, I asked you, and I was like, because I was doing like these X Factor posts and stuff, and I was asking you, hey, who would you put as the Grizzlies X Factor? Because I mentioned I don't know all that much about the Grizzlies. You said Dillon Brooks. Your explanation right now is like exactly why I can see him being that X Factor, because very, can get you, be your energizer, or it can just really fuck your team and shoot you in the foot.
when he's on, it's beautiful. When it's not, I want to turn the TV off until there's a rotation change.
I feel that. Just like keep it up on NBA, like, and then there's like subbed out. I'm like, okay, I can turn the game back on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Brandon Clark.
Yeah.
Clark. That was the next name. He 100%, in my opinion. I've gone toe to toe with Trey with this, which of course he's got to defend his guy that the Celtics drafted. But I think Brandon Clark was the steal of the draft. And talking to people, I've had some interactions with people at Grizz games that were at the massive Grizz draft party that was thrown at the FedEx Forum where they play at in Memphis. And the buzz, everyone knew and was happy about Ja Morant. But when there were rumors about us trading to somewhere in kind of the mid to back part of the first round again, eyeing Brandon Clark, there's a lot of buzz about that. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame. And because I also wrote something about this when talking about Brandon Clark and talking about other players, is about people shouldn't be afraid. And I think let me back up a bit. I think people were hesitant on Brandon Clark because he was a great player coming out of Gonzaga, but Gonzaga hasn't put out they have great college teams, but they never really have put out a solid NBA player, at least a starting caliber player. They've always been heavily rotation bench, maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes a game at the most. Mm-hmm. But, never like star potential, even with, the great, history that Gonzaga has as a program. And he also played in college all 4 years, and that scares a lot of people because they think a good player needs to be one and done and then have 3 years in the league, and that's going to be more valuable than 4 years in college. Well, Brandon Clark has shown that that's not the case because he stepped in. He's shooting almost 65% from the field as a whole, is shooting over let me look here real quick. Yeah, he's shooting 40% from three. Yeah. He doesn't take him in a high volume like someone like Jaren Jackson does, but he still shoots him at a decent rate, and he's just a he's a workhorse down low and really brings the energy with that second unit. And I think that once Valanciunas, once his time is up, because in my mind, I'm envisioning in the future that if we're ever competing for a title, Valanciunas is no longer on the team, or he's on the bench, or he has a severely less of a role with the team, and we're rolling with a lineup that's got Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson in there. Everyone loves to call the big three Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Brandon Clark, but he's getting he should 100% get all rookie first team honors. There's been a lot of buzz about that, and he's even getting consideration for sixth man of the year for his points and his rebounds. He's probably not going to win it. I think that should 100% be Montrezl Harrell. But he's definitely a guy that's overlooked by most people. 100% the steal of the draft. I don't care what Trey says, and is definitely one of those later in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot. Hold on. I was trying to get. First of all, I want to know who Trey has as steals of the draft. Is it a Celtics player?
Yeah, it's Williams. Is that his name?
Carson Edwards?
No.
No. Grant Williams. Grant Williams.
Yeah, that's it.
Dude hasn't even played. I don't know how he could be the steal right now. At this point, I'm with you. But my whole thing, first of all, Gonzaga, as good as a program they are, I hate that they play in such a weak conference. I know. I don't know much about college basketball, and I'll admit that any day of the week. I love brackology. I love doing that. Won't know anything else about it. But I know Gonzaga plays in a terribly weak conference. And so, yeah, their players are good. But like you said, they're usually kind of bench guys just because, they'll go to the dance. They'll beat some pretty good teams, but I just won't always count on them because, they somehow always disappoint you. And Brandon Clark being a 4-year player, honestly, I don't know why that scares teams so much. And maybe it's just because, different ideologies, but Spurs, they'll take anyone they like. 4 years, 3 years. It could be a 1-year player. We took DeJounte Murray after 1 year. We took Derek White after 4. So it's just whoever they like. I don't feel like players or teams should be as scared of that, how many years you've been in college. Everyone develops at different rates. Derek White is just now coming into his own, and he's 24, 25 in his third year in the league. So, usually that's unheard of. Usually you're like 21, 22 in your third year. So, I don't know. I think that narrative needs to stop because, different players develop. And you know what? Sometimes that time in college does them good. There's players that go and do a one and done and they're garbage afterwards. They're absolutely garbage in the NBA because you know what? Sometimes you need that extra just coaching. You go to the NBA, it's the big leagues. There's not a lot. There's time for coaching, but you got to know. You got to know what to do. So, Brandon Clark is, he's a guy that was on my radar for the Spurs at 19, and that's how much that tells you that I really liked him because I don't know a lot of NBA draft prospects year after year.
Yeah.
I know maybe top 5. After that, I'm like, I don't know who these guys are. Okay, I don't know who, but I was really just before the draft. I was into the Spurs Twitter and I was looking at names and I was like, okay, this guy, and he kind of fits what I want. Big. I need a big. We need a big because Tim Duncan's not there anymore. LaMarcus Aldridge is washed, so I'm looking for a big. Brendan Clark. That's it right there. So, and that's the guy that I wanted. I was kind of upset that he was gone, but.
Yeah. And the great thing about his development, he's definitely turned more into a playmaker now this year too. What I've noticed from the scrimmages and from the Portland game was that a lot of times, you get really excited because you see him and Ja running the fast break together. Clark is super quick for his size, and it's more than likely going to end with a Ja lob to Brandon Clark. Now it's actually reversed in a couple instances where Brandon Clark gets a steal or gets the rebound and gets it out. His ball handling has improved to where he can bring it up the court, and then Ja's the one that drops the hammer down.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to watch.
Okay, let's go to this next name. And I feel like Tyus Jones has been in the league for a little bit now, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. His brother was the starting point guard at Duke right now. Trey Jones.
Trey Jones. That's okay. I knew.
Yeah, that's his little brother.
No shit.
Yeah, it's his little brother. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. So Tyus is one. Okay, so this is kind of funny, and I'm wondering that if they've done this on purpose. If so, then we need to get Jahlil Okafor, and I forget who else is on there. But we have 3 players from the Duke national title. Wow, really? I forget what year it is, but Grayson Allen, Justice Winslow, and Tyus Jones were all starters on the Duke team.
Add Grayson Allen to our topic, but that's later on. I'll because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, but the 3 of them won a national title with Coach K at Duke. Yeah. So, like I said, Jahlil Okafor was the other guy, was the big on that one. I forget who else was on that roster. I need to figure out, but once we do, then we'll have collected all 5 of the Duke Natty winners.
You know what? This is gonna sound really nerdy, but Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like the Exodia shit. I don't know, the 5 cards of Exodia. It's a little nerdy. That's gonna go over some people's head, but you know what? Like Banished or whatever.
Yeah. But Tyus, he started his career in Minnesota. I don't think he started for them, but was a backup. But he was our free agent signing this year. He's a solid point guard. I think he hurt his foot in a practice, so he missed the Portland game, and I think he's going to miss the Sunday game against your Spurs, which we're being all buddy right now. But as you said, for 2.5 hours on Sunday, we're not friends anymore.
Right.
But
he was holding down the fort. Wasn't John Morant out for a couple games?
When Ja has been out, he holds down the fort. He learned the offense really quickly, really well. He's got an extremely high IQ. He rarely turns the ball over. And when I say rarely, I mean he's averaging less than a turnover a game.
Oh wow. Oh, that's good.
He's played in 65 games, which I think is. It's not all of them, but it's it's close to as on all the games that he has played. I actually think he missed 1 game at one point, and then this last game, maybe the only games that he's missed all season. He may have missed 1 or 2 games.
What's his assist numbers?
His assist numbers, I've got Basketball Reference up here right now. Tyus, he's at around 4.5 assists a game.
I mean, a 4-to-1 ratio. Give me that. That's baby food, man. So
No,
yeah,
he takes care of the ball, and he's the perfect point guard for that second unit to take control of it. And there's been a lot of times like Jaw's gotten in foul trouble before. It's easy. It's an easy decision for Taylor Jenkins to make, and it's the reason why Jaw sits out so much in the first half. Is to keep Jaw's legs fresh in the second half. Jaw's going to be playing a lot more in the second half than he does the first half, but it's because you can trust Tyus to run that offense so well and so effectively and not turn the ball over.
yeah.
So it's weird because there's not much to say about him, but except that he is just an amazing he's an amazing all-around point guard, and we got him on the cheap too. It's like another $10 to $13 million deal for the next couple of years. I don't know how this front office has done it, but ever since they stepped in last year, every decision that they have made has been the right decision, or about as right of a decision as you can make. And they use like some sort of like Jedi mind trick to, it's like you're gonna sign a long-term deal for just over 10 million, and the cap's gonna go up over the next.
You're really gonna help us out here, like And then so two more names, and this one has been kind of very unheard of from as far as I know, is Anthony Melton.
I didn't know a thing about him before he came to the Grizzlies, but we got him. So there was a lot of trading that happened before the season started. So we got him because we traded Mike Conley to the Jazz, and we got Kyle Korver and Grayson Allen in return. And we'll talk about Grayson Allen here in just a minute. But we decided to keep Grayson Allen, and we packaged Kyle Korver and Javon Carter, who I really liked. He's a point guard out of West Virginia. We took him in the second round, year before last. Big defensive guy. I thought he played, pretty well. But we shipped both of them off, and I think a second-round pick. I could be wrong about that, but I think a second-round pick. And we sent both of them over to Phoenix, and that's where we got Josh Jackson and De'Anthony Melton. And which was a really good trade because Josh Jackson, I know you said you didn't want to talk about him.
Yeah.
But before the hiatus happened, he was playing really good. He's averaging 15 points off the bench. He spent a lot of time down in the G League, which Melton did also because they were new to the squad. And what I really appreciate about the Grizzlies aren't afraid to use the G League. In fact, I saw the official account of the G League put out a tweet about Josh Jackson and De'Anthony Melton and how great of an example that the Memphis Hustle, who plays, I think it's in South Haven, which is about like maybe 40 minutes south of Memphis, closer to Mississippi, because like Memphis is pretty far south on the Tennessee border there. Quick geography lesson for you, by the way, and for everyone else out there.
We're educational here. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah, De'Anthony Melton. But he's another. He can handle the ball pretty well, but his nickname is Mr. Do Something, and it's because when you need a steal, when you need a bucket, when you need a stop, he's the guy that's going to do it. And he fits like a glove in, because Brooks is normally the first guy that's taken out in the rotation, and Melton's the next guy in before anything else happens. Usually it's like he goes in, and then Clark comes in for either Valanciunas or Jaren, kind of depending on foul trouble, because most of the time one of the two of them are in foul trouble.
Yeah.
But just another all-around solid guy. I mean, his numbers aren't anything to scream about. He's averaging 8 points a game, 3 assists a game, half a block a game.
He's a younger player?
Yeah, he's 21.
20. Oh, yeah,
he's 21.
So he's super. So, I mean, this is just a developing guy. I mean, he's developing his game, and so I feel like every squad kind of needs that Mr. Do Something that, hey, you tell him to jump and he jumps how high. Like he's asking how high, you know what I mean? So I feel
he's 100% that kind of guy.
Yeah, so, I mean, those guys right there, the guys you just named, I think, they need to be on more people's radar because they're very good players for the Grizzlies, and they just don't I feel like when people think of the Grizzlies, they're like, yeah, John Morant and maybe Jaren Jackson. Don't know anything else about this. And, that's kind of the thing with me. I was like, I want to know more about these players because these players are probably going to be with the Grizzlies for at least for a little bit, and they're going to help them develop and win them games and put them in the playoffs at least next year for sure, there's not going to be any doubt. No 8th seed conspiracy, which we'll get into that. I know that's one of my topics I want to get into. But next, and you know what? This guy gets a bad rap, and you know what? He's one of those players that you hate. I was just talking about this with Trey. There's players that you just hate in the NBA unless they're on their team, and it's Grayson Allen for me because
it's always the white dudes from Duke that get a bad rap.
But he looks like, he's like, his face looks like one of those like.
It's a punchable face, absolutely.
Yeah, racist. He looks racist. He looks like he's a Donald Trump supporter.
100% going to find this dude at a Trump rally.
Yeah, dude, like no kidding. But he's like, I mean, you know what? I like dirty players. I do because it's like, I love that because it's like your will to win. You're willing to. When he was doing that cheating thing at Duke, everyone hated it. I thought it was funny. I thought that shit was funny, man, because he's just like tripping people.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talk that we were going to take him instead of Dylan Brooks in the second round of that draft, which we took Dylan and we ended up getting Grayson anyway, so we ended up getting both of the players that we wanted. But yeah, we finessed the Jazz on that one.
Yeah, but I really like Grayson Allen. I know he doesn't play all that much, and I think he's been hurt. He's been hurt a lot this year. But when he's been healthy, he's hit like threes when we really need him to. He's done it a couple times down in the bubble. He is surprisingly athletic. Like he's like got a sneaky hidden athleticism that I think everyone kind of ignored. Yeah.
Because it's like, he's just a white dude. He's just going to be a spot-up shooter.
Jump.
That's all white people are in the NBA unless you're European, But no, this dude, I think he has a 40-inch vertical.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
It's a crazy vertical. There was a game that I was at that I watched him play at where he destroyed the rim. Like I was up in the nosebleeds and I heard the rim shake when he threw it down, and I was just like, "Oh shit!"
Like, relax, buddy, relax.
Yeah, but he's a part of this trend. It's like when we acquired Justice Winslow, where it's like these are low, and even Josh Jackson. These are low risk, high reward guys. It's like all we're really investing in them is time and the money that we're gonna have to spend anyway on someone else because of the need for players and the cap space that we had available at the time of acquiring them, which all these guys are on super cheap deals anyway to begin with. Grayson's still on his rookie contract. So, I mean, we're paying him nothing almost. It's a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
But if they pan out, then we've already got them here. We've got them in the system, and everyone, as far as I can tell, everyone loves being in this environment. The environment that the Grizzlies have put together is one of the more fun ones in the NBA. Going back to your boy Kyle Anderson, and talking about the San Antonio Spurs, like of how like a business family-oriented group and how everyone that except for Kawhi Leonard that has been a part of the Spurs organization, touching on a touchy subject there.
Touchy subject, man. My heart hurts.
All right, we'll skip over that a little bit. But everyone else that has been a part of the Spurs organization has loved it. Kyle Anderson has said he is blown away by this organization, how everyone interacts with each other, how everyone is hanging out, how everyone is actually friends together, but at the same time, they're competitors against each other and against others in the NBA. It's an incredible, and I think the culture that they're building and the fact that they're getting these second chance players, someone like Grayson Allen, who has a punchable face, or Josh Jackson, who's had a lot of trouble off the court, they're coming into the organization and they're kind of getting the second chance that no one else may really have given them. And if they blossom into really good NBA players, fantastic. Sign them to longer deals, and then we're way ahead of where we need to be because we've got our entire roster. Let's go compete. We got our 2 stars. Let's go compete. If they don't pan out, then no big deal.
Yeah. I mean, so like you said, low risk, high reward. I'm all for that, man. You know what? So fucking do it. I do have to touch on something and this is the problem sometimes is the Grizzlies did so well rebuilding because this is a rebuild project, but you know what? It's already ahead of schedule. It's already turned in at this point. When you rebuild so well and these players develop to really good guys, you got to worry about, how much are they going to get paid later on when they leave the team. Is that something that concerns you? I mean, I know for you, you just got into you're just probably getting out of this rebuilding phase. Does that, and you're probably just trying to enjoy the moment, but does that concern you that these players are going to be really good, that, we might not be able to keep them all and afford them all and, keep this really good roster, this really good, young, potentially awesome roster together?
Mhm. I mean, it's definitely something that I've thought about, and that it kind of stays in the back of my mind a bit. Right now the front office has my complete trust.
Yeah.
So whatever, and they've earned it, because it's not like, they drafted John Morant, they have my complete trust. It's no, they've drafted well, they've traded in the draft to acquire Brandon Clark, who's paid off tremendously. Free agent signings past 2 years paid off tremendously. So it's really 2 years that they really haven't missed the mark, or any trade that they've made has made sense, because they're also acquiring future assets. Who knows what's going to happen with our first round pick, because if we make the playoffs, or if we don't make the playoffs, but it's not like I think it's a top 3 pick this year, it's top 3 protected, then it goes to the Celtics. And we traded that away for freaking Jeff Green.
Yeah. So
that was like, we were one of those teams that got finessed by Danny Ainge, and this front office, I think, is not into the getting finessed type of business. They're only making decisions that are smart and are going to benefit the team. I don't know personally how players are, like what their priorities are as it comes to money. I've always been a guy that, in my mindset, it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. I don't care. Like back when I played basketball in high school, and it's like, if I'm not having a good game and I got to sit the bench, but we win, so be it. So be it. I don't care. And that's just who I am as a person. So, and the culture that they're building, I think you can maybe get that embedded into some of these young guys' mind, to where maybe when it does come time for Ja and Jaren, because they're going to get paid. Those are max player guys, 100%. And they're going to be worth every penny that we paid them. Yeah. As of right now, they have not shown me anything to where it's like, Jaren, I'm concerned. It's like, what? I'm not going to sign a guy to a max deal because he averages like 4.5 fouls a game. Like, yeah, that's something that needs to be worked on, but it's not something that's going to give me second thoughts. Or it's like, let's trade him, get him away. Let's just get an asset. Get another young player, get some draft picks for him. It's whatever. But who knows? Maybe the two of them, they get together and like, listen, we're close. We're almost there. We just need one more year. You take off like $3 million and I'll take off $3 million. And then that could be enough to bump the cap up a little bit. And then, Justice Winslow, he's been a great player. We'll throw $6 million a year his way. Maybe that'll convince him to stay. Something like that. That's just speculation, and that's just wishful thinking from me as a fan. But the culture that I'm seeing being built in Memphis is a different culture that I see everywhere else, even from teams that are rebuilding, where someone like the Suns, who have been rebuilding ever since Steve Nash left, it's been very self-centered, and it's a horrible run franchise. And also the connection to the city of Memphis, whereas it's not just a team, it's the city. The city is a part of the team, and the team is a part of the city. I think all of that intertwines together, and it's the reason why Mike Conley and Marc Gasol stayed for as long as they did, even though when they had better options, like back when Melo was still on the Knicks and the Knicks were semi-competitive, Marc Gasol was coming off the Defensive Player of the Year award and second team or I don't even think he made an all-NBA team. He's one of the few guys that's never made an all-NBA team but got Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, I know it's weird, but he did, because he had a great year, and he had an all-star year that year. He could have gone somewhere. He could have gone to New York. He could have gotten paid, and he could have been the guy for them, what he was for us forever, and what he was for the Raptors this past year.
Yeah.
But he stayed in Memphis because they had something going, and I hope I hope most of everyone can stay around. If they can't, I understand that, but I trust this front office to do what's best for the team.
You know what? What you're telling me, this culture in Memphis, and really that's where it starts. You know what? success will start at the front office, moves down. That culture that you're going to bring is going to be what's successful. You know what? The Warriors are doing that now. The Spurs have been doing it forever. That's why they've been, maybe subpar rosters, but been able to, still compete at a high level. So it all starts at the culture. And you know what? Is everything you're saying right now is true. And it sounds like it is. I mean, Memphis is good for a long time, and they're building something great that they're going to be one of those franchises where that culture is going to make their difference for winning. I feel like. Okay.
Yeah. You all need to come to Memphis. We'll go to a game.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. That'll be hell fun.
Because there is no other experience in the world when it's getting down to the wire against a team like the Kings, who Grizzlies fans just despise. And then 20,000 people in the arena are chanting, "Whoop that trick," which is such a Memphis thing. Or they're blasting 3-6 Mafia, who was a Memphis one of the more famous Memphis rap groups.
Yeah.
They're blasting them, and everyone's just having an amazing time.
All right, Jackson, it's time. I'm ready to hear your rant about the NBA conspiracy.
My rant, okay.
I'm ready for it.
I don't have all my notes in front of me, but I'm just gonna go from the dome off the top of my head here.
Just go. This is what
Let's
it's all
do it.
about.
Okay. So it all started with one dunk that went viral from Zion in high school. No, I'm not gonna go back that
You started at the beginning. I thought maybe at the start of the year. No, he said high school games. Okay, first of all.
No. Okay, but just the hype for Zion has been intense since he was about 16 years old. I remember being like a sophomore in college and seeing, holy crap, this is a 15-year-old man that is destroying the rim. It was fun to watch. And I was like, I can't wait for this dude to get into the NBA. He's going to be awesome. And there's years and years and years of building hype. He finally gets to college, and he's destroying the competition. R.J. Barrett was considered the number one prospect. He was going to be the number one overall pick that year until his teammate, Zion Williamson, just started destroying everyone, which, fun fact, by the way, John Zion are actually really good friends. They both played on the same AAU team in South Carolina. So they've known each other since childhood. Yeah. That's a small fact because, John Zion always joke about everyone trying to turn them against each other. And I'm definitely one of those guys that are trying to turn them against each other because
you got to. They're the number one. They're like the best picks in the draft.
Competition, man. Competition. But so, I mean, obviously the hype has been real. My biggest problem has been, and I've said this 100 times, that I hope Zion succeeds in the NBA, okay? I am not a Zion hater. Like, Trey likes to bug me that Memphis fans will say anything to degrade Zion. No, I hope the dude plays 20 years, is like an 18-time All-Star, 5-time MVP, and wins a championship or two. I hope he has a Hall of Fame career. If he becomes the GOAT, then I'm okay with that. Then I could say I lived in the time. Like I said, I'm not going that far. But if that was to happen, I hope he has a great career. I hope he has a Hall of Fame career. I hope he lives up to the hype. I don't want him to fail. But I am not for handing him the keys to the NBA before he's played half a season. He has played in 19 and a half games. And that half a game is the 20 minutes that he played the other night in the season.
It was 15 minutes.
15 minutes. So it's like he's played 19 and a third of a game.
Yeah.
And so just the whole bubble aspect, because, and, I watched, I listened to you and Garrett in the first ChicksTape podcast back, talking about how good of a narrative it would be for the Pelicans to play the Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. And I agree, that would be one heck of a narrative. And it's cool to see, Brandon Ingram, he's under LeBron's wing and isn't, everyone's thinking that he's a bust. He goes to New Orleans and he's an all-star. Yeah. Lonzo Ball, considered a bust by a lot of people. I'm still kind of on the fence on him. He
has bust nights, and then he's really good. And I just
exactly. He has many more good nights with the Pelicans than he ever did in his career with the Lakers. And even Josh Hart has been a pretty well-known guy for the Pelicans, more than just the podcast that he does.
Yeah.
And then of course, Zion versus LeBron, the king versus, the future of the NBA in many's eyes. I get that. I understand that. I'd watch the hell out of that series because it would be an entertaining series of all the good storylines. And then also AD against his former team. It's a great storyline. It's something that you cannot make up. And that's why, in my mind, Adam Silver and other NBA executives are thinking we can use this coronavirus as to our advantage. Because look at how it's structured. Okay, it's like you have to be, so they, instead of just inviting 16 teams down there, and you just kind of play a couple scrimmage games, maybe like 5 scrimmage games against different like cross conference scrimmage games, people that you're not going to see in the playoffs. That way there's no advantage or whatever going into the game. It's like, no, it's okay. It's like, we got to get the Pelicans here. Well, the Pelicans are 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies. How do we get the Pelicans here? And it's like, okay, let's invite more teams. And it's like, well, the Trailblazers, they're also 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies. So I guess we have to. So let's invite the Portland Trailblazers. Oh, the Spurs are also 3.5 games out of that. So it's like, well, 3.5 games. We better bring them here. And it's like the Kings they're 4 games back. And it's like, we can't cut the cutoff point at half a game because the next person behind them is like 7 or 8 games.
They went so far. They invited the Suns to come.
Exactly.
And that's 6 games back. So yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, well, we can't have, an odd number down here, and we can't make it look like we're just inviting Western Conference teams to try to get the Pelicans in there. It's like, let's invite the really shitty Wizards that are without Bradley Beal right now.
Yeah.
And the Suns almost lost to them yesterday, and they didn't have Bradley Beal.
My whole thing is, like, they could have went top 16. They could have just did it like that. I mean, the Grizzlies had a 3.5 game lead, yes.
And the schedule. That released.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. But, I mean, it's just like it is very – I'm not saying your conspiracy is totally baseless. There is a foundation for this because this is – it's bad. I mean, they had a 3.5 game over any team, 9 through 13 or whatever. They had a 3.5 game. So it was good enough that, and that they could have just went, okay, we're good. They made the playoffs. They earned it because they did. The Grizzlies did earn it. But then you're like, well, you throw in the Zion factor and like, it's okay. They're about 3.5 games. I think, and 8 games is such a weird number to me. It is. And it's like they're 3.5 games, and it's like, well, if they're 4 games under, then they can have a play-in. No. Like, that doesn't make what? Yeah. A play-in game. What? And then okay, so it got a little deeper the other day. I didn't write an article or anything about this, but so how Lou Will went to the strip club to get some wings, and then it also came out today that there was a dancer that ratted him out and said she danced for him there. Oh, man. But whatever. But anyway, he's under 10-day quarantine. He has to 10-day quarantine. Montrezl Harrell has to go away for an family emergency. 10-day quarantine. Zion goes away, 4-day quarantine. It's in there, bro. It's in the pudding. It's in the pudding, bro. Why does Zion get a 4-day quarantine so that way he can have 2 practices with the Pelicans before the first game of the restart? But Montrezl Harrell and Lou Will, who are on what should be the championship-winning Los Angeles Clippers, how come they have to wait 10 days and miss a couple games? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's what makes me laugh about it too is like, let's say everything we're saying right now, because it is a conspiracy, and it's believable because I mean, it's something what the NBA would do. NBA is all about ratings, much like other sports leagues. But then I guess Alvin Gentry didn't get the memo and played Zion 15 minutes, and they lose by like a couple possessions or like 2. Here's my other conspiracy. I think he's hurt. And they're not letting anyone know. That because I think it's weight, man. Because he missed 2 practices. There was one report that came out. Everyone glanced over it. He missed 2 practices in a row because of cramps. And all of a sudden he's back and he's on a minute restriction when they're trying to get into the playoffs. And there's also a report that Alvin Gentry said that from the medical staff that that for the next 2 games
So you're telling me they're going to be 3 games in the season, and he's going to have the same workload where he's playing short bursts and he's not going to play at the end of games.
Yeah. So
I think there's an underlying health issue there. And you see, I hate that. I want to see Zion play 40 minutes. I want to see him drop a quadruple double, like a 50-point quadruple double on someone's head. I want to see him do that. I want to see domination. I want to see the beast unleashed.
Yeah.
But there's something fishy.
I think a lot of it is his weight, man. I mean, like, I know he's a big guy, and big as in he's muscled, but I think he's got a little bit of chunkiness on him that he probably needs to. And you would think.
Saw that gumbo in New Orleans.
Oh, I don't blame him, right? But I mean, like, you would think, we're quarantined for like 4 months. Maybe, hey, let's cut that out. And there was a picture that Zion looked really skinny in, but I think it was just a really good angle because now.
Yeah, and when you look at him in his jersey the other night, he looked pretty much the same.
He looked the same. So I mean, I don't know. I do know that the Pelicans would have won that game if they played Zion 16 minutes instead of
100%
easily. All they had to do was put him in. Even if he just had to run up and down the court. You didn't even have to give him the ball, but just having his presence was going to hurt them. But Jackson, I think you have a solid conspiracy here going because this was dumb. And I saw the seeding games and I saw what they gave the Grizzlies, and I was like, they really just fucked the Grizzlies. They earned this. They played well for 60 games, 65 games, and then.
And I know the counter argument, and you even said the counter argument in the past about they had the hardest schedule going into the final leg of the season, and then the Pelicans had one of the easiest ones. A lot of people look over that during the tough stretch of games, we beat a Danny Green-less Lakers. Everyone else was healthy except for Danny Green without Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson.
Yeah.
John Morant dropped, I think it was 29 and 10 on LeBron.
I just what more do you, and it's just like to do, and that's why I did pick the Grizzlies to win, just because I do think that lead will sustain them. But I do think that the Grizzlies do deserve to be there. They do. I mean, they're 3.5 games over, and then you got this conspiracy going on that, hey, we're going to play 8 games when you're 4 games behind. So it's just like, it gives you, I mean, just look at the math of that.
And the play-in structure, it's like, that's the thing that throws people off their trail, off their sit, because it's like, well, whoever's in control of that 8 spot, they only have to win 1 game. Whoever's playing them in a play-in game has to win 2 games. So if it's the Grizzlies still in charge of that 8 spot, but it's the Pelicans that are within, that number of games, then the Pelicans have to win. They have to beat the Grizzlies twice in a row, but all Memphis has to do is just win 1 game. They could lose 1, they could win 1, Memphis moves on. They can win the first one, Memphis moves on. Pelicans would have to win 2 games in a row. So I don't know.
It's dumb. I felt like when they did this, it could have been better. I mean, and I think one of the best options was just sending the top 16. Just go.
Yeah.
And but when they were talking about doing the group stage, I thought that was a really cool idea. That seemed fair.
I thought it was too.
I thought it seemed fair for everyone involved. I mean, it goes in order, like you go whatever by record. So it's like Lakers, Bucks, and then you just have teams at the end. And you know what that means? You face people that they're going to be hard teams, they're going to be easy teams. So I don't know, but this just looked bad. It really did. And then there's a lot of Zion hype, as you said, and so it just did not look good for Adam Silver to be like, yeah, we love Zion, so we're going to give the Pelicans this easy schedule because he's going to bring good ratings, which he would. But the Grizzlies, for me, as a basketball that I love basketball and I love winning, the losing, I love the culture. It's just like the Grizzlies deserve to be there. They won 32 games, and we're basically throwing that aside because we want Zion in the playoffs against the Lakers, which is really great TV, but not for the basketball side of me. I want to watch, the team that deserves to be there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I honestly think that the Spurs could be the team that knocks off the Grizzlies. I mean, the Spurs or the Blazers would be the 2 teams, in my opinion.
I wasn't confident in my Spurs. I'm trying not to get excited, and I didn't watch the game because it's on League Pass. That's another thing that I hate about the NBA sometimes. But everyone's saying the Spurs look good, and I was like, man, don't get my hopes up like this. I've already said in my mind that the Spurs are probably not making the playoffs, but man, if they just reel me in just to break my heart, I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah. I'd honestly, just because I like the Spurs, like, I've never hated the Spurs. Even though I'm not a Spurs fan, I can appreciate greatness. I appreciate greatness when I see it, and so I've always liked the Spurs. But I'd almost prefer them not to make the playoffs, just because I don't want them to stifle their rebuild any longer. And that would be best. That would be best for you guys to not make the playoffs, even fall behind a little bit in the standings, so you have a better chance of getting the best pick that you possibly can, maybe even a top 10 pick.
Well, and I think Greg Popovich, he came out with this and he said, and it does look bad unless I think you're the Spurs, but he's like, we're not looking to win. We're looking to develop our young talent. And if we win, that's great. If we don't, that's not the point of this. So I am glad that he is using this time to develop those players like Lonnie Walker, who I love. Keldon Johnson's getting valuable minutes. I'm not sure if Luka Simonik or whatever, how you say his name. I'm not sure if he plays. Pirtle, they're playing Pirtle a lot. They're trying to develop that young core, and I love that. I'm for it, But they played really well with the young core. DeMar DeRozan played really well. I mean, he scored 17 points in the fourth quarter against the team. I was like, but he was mostly facilitating the ball for the young Spurs players. I'm just happy they're getting experience and all that. But I will say, and I'll be honest, I did not like the Grizzlies all that much because of – and it's not like I hated them and I thought they were, just a bad organization. I just hated playing the Grizzlies in the playoffs. It was just like the one team. It's
because we knocked you guys off as the 8th seed, right?
Yeah. Well, that one time, yes, and that hurt my feelings a lot, and I hated that. But I mean, I was always scared of Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley. That grit and grind basketball that you played with the Grizzlies, man. I hated that shit. I was like anybody but the Grizzlies, especially after 1-8. 1-8, and I was like, after that, I was like, I don't want to play the Grizzlies ever again, ever. I don't want to play them in the playoffs because let someone else play them. Because it's just they played a respectable brand of basketball, that hard-nosed, very – and you know what? They were very quiet about their business. I mean, it could be small market, whatever. But, man, grit, grind. I'm mad – not mad because it would have to go through the Spurs, but I am a little bit disappointed they didn't get more success with that group because they really deserved it. They were hard-nosed basketball program. It was –
yeah. They were always a wing player or, a shooter.
It's like that one player that
and
one
and in the year that they made the Western Conference Finals, that was probably their best year. But Zach Randolph had gotten suspended from a scrap up with the Clippers series before. I want to say that was maybe 12 or 13. I can't remember. But we'll say this though, I did get to go to the last time the Grizzlies were in the playoffs. They played the Spurs, and I went to the equalizer game in Memphis where they tied it up 2-2, where I think it was Conley hit the game tire and Gasol hit the game winner in overtime. And I got to see Kawhi for the first time in person. I'm like, I never want to see Kawhi Leonard again play the Grizzlies because he killed that game.
Man, I was a big fan of Kawhi Leonard. And you know what? I still love Kawhi Leonard. I really do. As a Spurs fan, I hate him. But as a lover of basketball, I love his game. I love everything about his game. And so when he left, I was heartbroken, man. And I was like, you got to be shitting me. Like, because, and the Spurs players, they were trying to do good by, the intervention shit and whatever. They wanted him to play. They loved him. But, Uncle Dennis, if he was a real reason why, he wanted to be traded or whatever, his injury thing, I don't know. I try not to think about it too much. I try to let it go. I just enjoy his game from afar. I'm rooting for the Clippers, obviously, and I'm like, you know what, go Kawhi Leonard, go my son. Because, I love how he just goes about his business. He's all basketball. He's a very humble guy. He drives, like, the same truck he drove in high school or some shit like that. Or, real humble guy. I love his game. True Spurs player, I feel like, and will always be, no matter how Spurs fans look at it, he's always going to be one of those players. Jackson, do you have anything else about the Grizzlies? Anything that you want to get off your chest?
Not really. I don't think. I think we
hit a lot. We hit a lot.
We hit a lot. I'm looking at Right now, there's really no one else. John Conchar is definitely a name that no one knows about,
I
but
have no idea who you just said.
in the game against the Lakers, though, that dude was a boss. He's another I think he went to Purdue. May not have been Purdue.
Yeah.
But he was like a free agent or like an undrafted free agent signing that's been in the G League, and we brought him up because we had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And he's done really well because we signed a guy named Marko Guduric, who was supposed to be a 3-point ace, but looked like he was scared to shoot every time he was out there.
I'll believe you because I don't even know those guys, so I'll believe you.
That's fair, man. There's a lot of players that I don't know in the NBA that if I was like, who the hell is that guy? Then if there was like a super fan right next to me, they'd flip out and I'd get a 2-hour.
No,
like I'd get a 2-hour lecture, you know.
Yeah. I'm just trying to watch the game.
Okay, think about it this way: John Conchar is our Alex Caruso, but with realistic expectations.
I can't stand that guy. I'm gonna have a whole podcast episode just ripping Alex Caruso. I feel like it's just.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
Just gotta go to Rancher. I can't stand that guy. You know what? And that's just fans and everything. But Jackson, I hope when people watch this, and I hope a lot of people do watch this, that they know more about these Grizzlies players. And you did brilliantly to explain them. And, you know, I think this is a team that people need to know more about. These players need to be known more about because, you know, now they're going to be relevant more in the future if they stay with the Grizzlies. If they go to other teams, they're going to be good players on other teams. I feel like these players just need to be known about. Mm-hmm. I'm rooting for those Grizzlies. You know what? Get those Grizzlies. I hope they upset the Lakers. If they get the playoffs, I hope they upset the Lakers. Maybe because I hate the Lakers, but you know what? I'm rooting for the Grizzlies.
If that was to happen, you would never hear the end of it from me.
Bro, I talk so much. You'd
have to block me on Twitter. Like Trey would probably get rid of me.
I would retweet everything you say. Just be like, you know what? Fuck you guys. We were the best team. Fuck your conspiracy. Fuck this. Fuck that. Like, bro, I'm all for it. You know what? But I'm rooting for those Grizzlies. I'm rooting for this team. If they don't make the playoffs this year, they're going to be relevant for the next.
Yeah,
I don't know,
and it's like I tweeted out after their loss. I said I got to keep reminding myself, it's a young team. We're way ahead of schedule, and you know we kind of discussed about it a little bit in our messages about how young team, their age showed in overtime because they didn't come out in overtime firing on all cylinders, and they just kind of let it get away from them. But that's their youth. That could also be the Rona restart and everything. But Ja's going to be must-watch TV. And so I'm excited. Everyone's going to get to know these players a lot better over the coming years.
I think he's the only relevant player to come out of Murray State. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully we get more than just the MLK game because that's about the only time we have a televised game. It's the MLK game.
Man. Small market teams deserve more love. They really do. But I think that's going to do it for us. I'm root for the Grizzlies. I mean, they deserve it. And you know what? If you don't get on this train now, they're going to be relevant for years. So you might as well just get on the train now. They got a bright future. Jackson, any last words, or are we good?
I think we're good, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, no problem. Until next time, guys, look for another podcast episode. Oh, first, check out the website, Vendetta Sports Media. Got to put that ad in there. Check out the website, Vendetta Sports Media. Jackson has a lot of great posts on there. Jackson also, he's just started a backyard football kind of video series, and it's great.
Hey, real quick, an exclusive announcement on your podcast. So if everyone's made it this far, I'm gonna get it set up for the next couple days. Backyard basketball is coming to the channel.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, we're ready for that.
I got it on my computer. I played a game. I sucked. I'm horrible at it. So should be much more entertaining.
Oh yeah, but that's the fun of it all. So
that's the fun of it all. So yeah, backyard basketball coming soon. Backyard basketball coming soon.
Yep, Jackson does football. He's going to open up basketball. I believe my boy Carl from the website does baseball right now. So it's a lot of nostalgic fun up there. Please check out the other videos on YouTube. Check out the website. Great articles on there. We talk about basketball, all teams. You know what people that you've never heard of, people that you should know more about. Our opinions on all of them. But please check out the website. Jackson, thank you for coming. and talking about your Grizzlies, putting some limelight on these players that need that spotlight. So
represent
yes,
always.
Sir. Vancouver, please go. Please just change it. Memphis
Change it.
Right
Come on.
Just change it. That's all you got to do. Till next time, I'm hoping to have another episode out maybe this week or next week. Till next time, guys. Thanks.